us talk more about the WASSCE results released today. And we're talking about half of the candidates who have failed two critical papers, maths and English. I'm joined right now by Kofi Asare, who is Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch. I'm grateful for your time, Mr. Kofi Asare. First, let's look at the performance of this year's candidates. It does appear that there's some improvement in science and social studies, but sharp decline in English and maths. What's your analysis showing us reason for this performance?
Good afternoon to your cherished audience. I think that it's for those subjects, it's been, it's been fluctuating. If you look at the past 3 years, maths, English, and then normally integrated science. So it looks as if there are issues with especially maths and English. As I'm saying, it's been the trend. It keeps going up and it comes down. But if you look at the performance in its totality, it is a repeat of last year's 50%, at least 50% of students having between A1 and C6 in the 4 core subjects: maths, English, integrated science, and social studies, which is a good sign or a sign of good progress, even though we are having a decline in 2 of the subjects, and then also improvements in one and then marginal improvement in the other.
Now, results of over 3,000 candidates, but even before I talk about those results, so what do you think is causing the failure in these 2 papers, the maths and English?
Well, maths is an issue right from basic. Our issues with maths is primarily due to the way maths is taught from the basic level. Maths is taught to be a mystical subject. We haven't yet been able to unmask or demystify the teaching of mathematics. It is still perceived by many students at the basic level as a difficult subject. And so you wouldn't expect that to quickly, do a 360 when you get to secondary level. It is actually a tradition from basic. If we are able to demystify the teaching of maths, change the approach maths teachers adapt in teaching mathematics and make it more participatory, make it more learner-friendly, I'm sure people will be more interested in doing maths and then learning maths as much as the other subjects. So that is the issue with maths. With English, that as we speak at the primary level, less than 20% of students who are completing primary 6, have proficiency levels in English at the minimum. The biggest challenge in our education sector is actually literacy and numeracy rates, especially for English. So I would say that the pass rate in WASSCE English is actually an improvement on what we normally observe during the national or piloted, standardized tests at the basic level. But we have a lot of work to do in enhancing literacy. Government has rolled out some quality interventions in the area of teaching and learning English and mathematics with the aim of trying to build foundational skills in maths and English. I'm sure if those interventions are implemented thoroughly, we should see more enthusiasm and more interest and also quality learning outcomes coming out of maths and English at the secondary level in the near future.
Now, let's talk about the results of over 3,000 candidates that have been withheld. WASSCE explains it's as a result of exams more practices. We'll get WASSCE soon to tell us, the status of these results. But what do you make of this situation? I remember, you've complained. Even last year, you had complaints about withholding results.
Well, if you look at the data on papers that have been withheld, cancelled, or entire subject results that have been cancelled, you realize that let's start from the subject results cancelled. Compared to 2020, 2020 there was no practice and we reported them. So 1,339 students, subjects results were cancelled. 1,339. That was after we have raised issues of malpractice. Now, this year, that number has increased by 75%. It means that it affirms our claim that, there were institutionalized cheating, there was leakage in, questions for most of the subjects, for some of the subjects, during this year's WASSCE. That is why you find that the number of subject results that were cancelled increased by 75% between 2020 and 2021. Now let's come to the withheld results. That is also an indicator of, possible malpractice or examination fraud. Last year, 384 results were withheld upon the release of the general results, 384. This number has shot up by close to 1,000% to 3,667. Again, it tells you that the number of question answer sheets with issues suspected malpractice has increased by close to 1,000%. Then the third one is the number of students whose entire results were cancelled. In that case, it's not one subject, but entire results. Last year, when we raised issues about malpractices, the number of students whose entire results were cancelled was 174. As we speak, that number has increased to 480. That is a 150 percentage points increase in that number. So on all the indicators of malpractice, examination fraud, collusion, cheating, you find that all the indicators have gone up, and goes to confirm that there was something wrong with this year's WASSCE, much more serious than last year's WASSCE.
What could that be?
The leakage in some examination questions and institutionalized collusion as admitted by WAEC, that in some schools, school authorities were conniving with students, invigilators whose job it was to ensure that rules of conduct governing examinations were adhered to, were rather colluding with students and school authorities to enable them cheat for a consideration. That is what is manifesting in what we are seeing. Because you realize that when the marking was taking place, we received various sorts of mark papers. There was a particular English essay question that I received about 4 or 5 different answers in a particular school, being marked by a particular examiner. 5 candidates wrote the same. This is essay. This is an essay. Word to word, paragraph to paragraph, everything was the same. Essay, English. So obviously these things are easily detectable by the markers and WAEC, and they will either sanction you either by cancelling your results or withholding them. So when you see this data relating to malpractices increasing, then it tells you that generally the examination, the conduct of the examinations did not go down too well compared to other years.
Definitely, we need to improve on this performance going forward. I mean, you've indicated that there's been more practices, there's been conniving with invigilators to aid the students and what have you. But what do you recommend as a surest way in improving performance going forward?
Well, I would say that it is difficult to make a definite pronouncement on this performance, because this performance, as we mentioned, had issues. So you are seeing 54% pass in maths. It could have been less, because core maths it leaked heavily. English language 1 and 2 leaked, the essay leaked heavily. And so it is difficult to, say firmly that for some of them, this is a true reflection of the students' ability. You see, we keep raising the issue that when questions leak, it blurs the extent to which the assessment becomes a fair assessment of the student's academic attainment. It blurs it because you do not know whether that student actually got questions or they did not get questions. And it is not always that you can determine whether the student had questions or foreknowledge of questions or not on the surface of the examination paper. No. WAEC is only able to determine that when people are writing the same thing. But when people are writing the same thing, they are not able to detect whether they had followed it or not. So one of the reasons why we keep raising issues about the need to block the leaks is that whenever there are leaks, it casts doubts on the credibility of the assessment, whether indeed what Kofi Mensah wrote is genuinely a fair reflection of what he knows, or Kofi Mensah was exposed to the questions ahead, and so that assessment may have been compromised. That is the challenge for examination of practice. But again, I would say that we have a lot to do in terms of improving our performance at WASSCE. I don't want to dwell so much on WASSCE because, as I mentioned, issues related to maths and English are purely foundational. They are the hangovers of a poor performance in maths and English at the basic level. The best way to strengthen pass rates in maths and English in WASSCE, I believe, is to strengthen the quality of instruction in maths and English at the basic level, and also provide adequate teaching and learning resources, proper supervision, and ensure that the right pedagogy is adapted by teachers in learning maths and English, and make it more attractive and participatory for learners. If you strengthen the foundational skills at the basic level, you will be improving WASSCE results in the next 2, 3, 4 years in maths and English.
I'm grateful for your time. Kofi Asare is Executive Director of Africa Education Watch. I must say we've been trying to get WAEC for more on this provisional results. It's been difficult getting them, but